What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Learning Quick. Super excited to have Miguel Arias on the stream, who we got to meet in like a video chat randomly, or kind of randomly, I guess, a couple of months ago. Learned about your product, KwesForms, which we'll talk a lot about. And that's going to be really the focus, I think, of the stream, is your background, the product that you built, how you built it, all the things that go into building it, taking time for yourself as you build a product out yourself, that kind of stuff. So anyway, welcome to the stream. And I guess what did we decide on for the intro? Co-founder of KwesForms, and then you get to do your intro piece too.
What's up?
keeping it really simple. Nothing too in depth for the intro. Don't want to give away too much information early on. But I guess maybe one of the things to start with is just a little bit about your background from like, I don't know if you have any significant moments that like influenced you as an entrepreneur, like what gave you that mindset, and then just kind of how you got started in programming.
Well, as an entrepreneur, I think if you ask anybody in my family, they'll tell you that ever since I was like 6 years old, I've been trying to invent something.
You've been selling lemonade and
Yeah, I don't know why, but that's
yeah.
just how I've always been. And then I got into programming when I was 18 because I was dating who my wife is, she's my wife now, but
Nice.
she was my girlfriend at the time, and then I wanted to marry her, so I kind of like was scrambling to find a job. And I had never programmed before in my life. I always kind of liked design, but I never really used it through that channel or whatever. So then someone was hiring that my mom knew that he had like an agency, like a really small agency, which is Eric.
Okay.
He hired me to do like some basic like monkey work on the computer, just like data input or something. And then he said that he needed a developer. So I was like, okay, you need a developer. I need a wife. So I'm gonna learn how to code, and then maybe he'd hire me.
The way you set that up though makes the confusion of who the wife is in that scenario a little
Right,
confusing.
Eric's the wife. So then I told him I was gonna start learning it by myself, like on lynda.com or whatever.
Yep.
And I told him that in 3 months I would be able to be like his developer, and he laughed at me because he thought that there was no way. So then I would like study it like, I don't know, like 4 to 6 hours a day, just like every day. But it made it easier that I liked it because I don't know, for some reason I kind of fell in love with it like immediately.
Yep.
And then I started coding. I started, kind of getting the skills, and then he actually hired me to be his developer. And then after working together for like a few years, I got the idea of making a form service because we were using FormStack at the time, which is great, But we kind of, at least me, since I was a developer, I didn't really like using a drag and drop service because then we would have to kind of like go through a lot of work trying to style it to look like how we wanted to, because those things usually come with like their own styling and stuff. And then I just like bursted through his office, and I was like, bro, let's make our own like form service. And then again, he laughed at me. You're gonna notice this is a
this is a common theme. Yeah.
He laughs at all my stupid ideas, and then he laughed at me. He's like, dude, why are we gonna do that? Like that makes no sense, And then I was like, you'll see. So then I went and I started thinking about how I would make it for like what would be perfect for me. All right.
Yep.
So which is great because I was kind of like how do you say, like the user it was meant for. Like I was like the type of audience that I wanted. So I was able to just do something that I thought fit perfectly for me, and then just hope that maybe it would work for other people in similar situations. So then I started kind of figuring out how I was going to make it different and what it needed to be like a really good workflow. And then I showed him the demo, and then he was like mind blown. He thought it was super cool. And then that was when we kind of like went into it for real,
Nice. So
That was about like 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay. And you haven't been working on this full time for 4 years. I'm assuming you're still doing like agency work, and then.
Yeah, I was still doing agency work. And then at one point, Eric and I just like went partners on the agency just so that we can, we just split the profits of the projects that come in, and then we kind of work on KwesForms and stuff like that. And it helps that we had the same office, and we just started sharing the office as well. But yeah.
So you started, and this seems like really wild to me. And obviously you said this was Eric's response too, of like, you said, give me 3 months and I'll be ready to be a developer. And that like, it's possible, that's not a very common thing that people are able to accomplish, to be honest. But sounds like you had lots of time, like during the day, you had that 4 to 5 hours or something while you were learning. You were super passionate about, like you enjoyed it, and that I think is always the big difference in learning anything new. Is
Yeah,
if you feel like you have a reason and you feel like you enjoy it along the way, like it's not forcing yourself to do work. It's just doing stuff that you have fun doing anyway.
yeah. It feels like if you were like doing a hobby, like
Yep.
that's kind of like what a hobby is. You're doing something, you're gardening, you're doing something that takes work and effort, but you like it. So,
So, one for people in the chat, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in there, and maybe you can start to talk a little bit more about, like, I'm just really curious for developers, including myself. Like, a lot of us have ideas, like, oh, what if there was this thing, or oh, I could build this, and like we've all been there where you have an idea and maybe you write some code and then you're like, I don't really care anymore. Like,
mhm.
what was the progression for you with Quez? Like, how did you get to the point where this is something that, like, you really, really bought into and we're going to take seriously and you were going to make it happen? It sounds like it's kind of the mentality you have of, like, I'm going to make this thing happen and then we'll see from there.
I think that the way that I went about it, I would not recommend it, but I'm going to tell you anyways,
Sure.
just so that you can learn from my mistakes. But one of the reasons why I was kind of just able to really go all in is just because I'm real naive. Like I have like a really strong belief in myself, and I want to do something, and I could be like very focused. But I made the mistake of, well, me and Eric made the mistake of kind of building the product behind closed doors. It was real stupid. Like you should never do that because it took us to build a good product because you think of like, oh, I have this good idea, whatever. And let's say you actually build that product and it's like the perfect, like exactly how you envisioned it still doesn't mean anything. If
Yep.
nobody knows about it,
Yep.
it doesn't mean anything. You could build the most perfect product. And I always thought like, oh, but if you build something so great, like
People
it
will
will just
come.
market itself,
Yep.
That's not true.
I'm learning
Yeah.
more and more about that, and like small details of how I change like titles and thumbnails on my YouTube videos. Like, and people give the advice of, like, especially on YouTube, like consistency is key. And that's true, but it's not all. Like, there's a lot more that goes into it. And I like that's a lot of the stuff that I would like to dive into, like with Quest specifically.
Yeah, in regards to like I don't really know how YouTube works, but at least with products, I mean I know how YouTube works, but I mean in regards to like monetizing,
YouTube, never heard of it.
YouTube. Oh yeah. So in regards to like making a product, a tech product at least, since there's just so many people on the internet and it's like very saturated, even if you build the best product ever, like people are not just gonna show up
Yep.
because you build the best product. That's never gonna happen. Like no one's ever gonna find you. So then marketing is extremely important. So then part of marketing would be when you're actually building it to kind of get people involved and let them know what you're doing. People also, it's just like a tendency, like human nature. People really like to root for somebody that's going for something,
Yep.
and kind of like to see the whole journey and everything. And then it helps you because it gives you motivation. I worked on that product for 2 years behind closed doors without telling anybody. And then when it was, when I finished it, it still wasn't as good as it could have been because no one had tried it.
Yep.
So then I published it, I launched it, and there was nobody. And I was like, what an idiot. Like, what am I doing? So
Well,
then,
that's what a lot of people
yeah,
they talk about, the idea of like the MVP, the minimal viable product, with whatever, like whatever you're shipping, do the MVP so that you can get it in the hands of users, you can get their feedback and then iterate based on that. Because and I think this is kind of what you're saying, like if you spend a lot of time building something thinking that it's the right thing for people and then it turns out it's not, you've just wasted a lot of time. So the earlier on in that process is you get feedback, and then just build the stuff that you're getting feedback on. It'll put you in a better position to make sure that the stuff you put out there is hopefully relevant for people.
yeah, and I was aware of the whole MVP thing, and I thought I was doing an MVP. I just
Hmm.
get so obsessive
Yeah.
that I keep trying to perfect it, and it was just, you should not do that. You should do the MVP. You should get people involved. You should show demos. You should let people try it, and then people are always going to have great ideas because you can't think of every single angle of which like something can go wrong or something might, your product can be used for this or that or whatever.
Yep.
Like that's actually how we ran into the whole Jamstack community because I didn't even know what Jamstack was at all when I started it, and then people started. Once people finally started, using it and started gaining some more traction, people started telling me, all about Jamstack. Oh, this is perfect for Jamstack, and then whatever Jamstack. And I was like, what is that? So
What
then,
is this Jamstack you speak of?
yeah, so that what is YouTube? And I was kidding.
What is YouTube?
So then I went and I looked up Jamstack, and then I was like, wow, yeah, this is really good for Jamstack. And I started noticing a lot of huge improvements that I had to make to it to make it even better for Jamstack. Like I had to improve the speed of the
Hmm.
script, I had to make it lighter, you know. So then that wouldn't have happened if I didn't show it to anybody, you know.
Yeah.
So it would have happened earlier if I would have showed it to people earlier, you know.
Yep. There's an interesting comment in the chat that I think I still disagree with, but it's worth kind of bringing up. Code Stencil says, not sure the MVP concept works anymore. There's a lot of products these days, and when people don't find the product good enough, they may never come back. And I think you are opening yourself to potentially burning a bridge in that sense. But I like you're practical about it, right? Like you're not shipping trash. You're shipping just what is the minimal realistic part that I need to get feedback and then build features. Like if someone says, if their feedback is you're missing this feature that I would want, that's not a bad thing. That's a great way for you to prove to them that you take feedback seriously and add on that. But if you send out an MVP and they're like, this doesn't work, it doesn't do what it says, that's a different story.
Yeah, and it's funny because what he said, I was actually scared about it, of like first impressions, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want their first impression of my product to be perfect. I want it to be exactly what I want it to be. But I mean, I'm already on version 2 of it, and I kind of, you realize that there's like a million people in the world. So maybe the first few got a certain impression of version 1,
Yep.
and now I have way more people looking at version 2, and it kind of balances itself out. So it is kind of true what he says, where you might give someone like leave a bad taste in their mouth if they see like maybe an unfinished product.
Yep.
If you kind of put out an MVP, but then at the same time you'll finish it a lot faster and with a lot, it'll be a lot better if you get people's input anyways.
Absolutely. By the way, we just got to subscribe. Shout out to Tonmoy Mahuri who subscribed. Thank you for that.
Boy.
Yeah. Yes, there's definitely a balance, but I think you have to have that feedback cycle open. You have to have that loop. You have to be taking into account what other people want and build around that. And it's interesting.
Oh,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. You go.
I was gonna say before we get off the topic, because I don't know if you were gonna. I was gonna say that something else that helped in the lines of what you said of getting people's feedback was always being available for support.
Mm.
So we use Intercom for the live chat. That's actually where I made the most relationships with people. Um, people would need help with support or whatever, and then I would just start asking them. Like once I helped them, I would start asking them like, "So what do you think so far? You think there's something missing? Is there something that you would like?" And I would do that with the free users in the beginning.
Hmm.
Just because it kind of helped me get more in tune with the community and what people were really kind of like looking for, and it helped a lot. And I built a lot of great relationships like that. So
Yeah.
now back to you. What were you saying?
Well, I probably something similar, and it was about how we met. And you had sent me an email. And by the way, like I think I kind of mentioned this to you, but also for other people, like I'm at a point in my content creation career where I'm starting to get a lot of requests, and I'm really like having to adapt my mentality around the stuff on how I respond to it, because it's way too much that I can ever do. And so unfortunately I have to like pretty quickly say like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time to do that right now. And with yours, you sent me an email, said like, hey, we have this product. I love if you give it a look and just let me know what you think. And I responded, I looked at like the website, but I didn't want to provide feedback without actually testing it out. And I just didn't have the time to do that at that point. So what happened was, and I like when I made this connection, it was like it made me so excited to talk to you. But I opened up the only time I haven't done it since, the only time I've done like paid office hours. And you paid for an office hours and showed up, and you were like, "Oh yeah, I sent you that email." And I was like, "Whoa, what? What the hell?" Like it was worth it enough to you to then like pay for my time, and like that was super cool. It let me know that you were serious about getting feedback, but also us now having a relationship, like a friendship, a relationship of some sort, virtual, like even though we've never met in person, which is it's how it is with everyone that comes on the stream because of COVID. But with me now knowing you as a person and hearing your story and kind of seeing how excited you are about the product and the stuff that you build, like everything that you do that I see, I'm going to share and I'm going to be supportive of, just because I like to see people that I know that are doing good things succeed and continue to grow. So when you talk about like giving that feedback to or having that support system, that earns that trust, right? And like from a consumer perspective, that trust, that relationship is invaluable.
Yeah, and it's like what I had said earlier, that when people always like to root for someone that's going for something. I don't
Absolutely.
know why it is. Maybe because it's like inspires other people as
Yeah.
well. So when people see like, okay, you have this idea and you're going for it and you're working hard on it, like it kind of builds that support system and then it helps you to keep going, you know?
Yeah. And
That's
it,
funny, that the story about how we met too. I don't
yeah.
know if I told you, but yeah, so I had sent you the email and then you had responded like that, which what I expected, because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's pretty busy. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I saw that you have put the thing on Twitter for the, and I was like, oh, I got him now.
Got him.
He can't escape me now. So that was
uh,
how we actually got to talk.
yeah. Yeah. I thought of like when you said in that meeting, because I was just meeting with random people, right? And then you were like, yeah, I sent you that email. And I was like, oh shit, really?
Yeah.
That was really cool. You had a question a little bit further back in the chat just about the name of Quez. Does that have any specific significance? Where did that name come from?
Yeah, it comes from the phonetic root of the word questionnaire. So when I was looking for like a name for the brand or
Hmm.
something, I was looking for like synonyms to forms, whatever. That's typically how I get the ideas. And then questionnaire was one of them. And then I saw, you know how typically on Google you'll have like the phonetic spelling of it.
Yeah.
And then I saw the phonetic spelling, which was Quest,
Okay.
KWES.
Yeah. Okay.
I liked that it was 4 letters. And then originally the brand was just Quest, but then we thought for like marketing purposes to add KwesForms to it, just to
Hmm.
kind of like make it easier to know what it is.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good move. So yeah, so that's where it came from.
That's cool. I don't know if I heard that before. That's a really cool origin of the name, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I've never really like looked at the phonetic root. Like I didn't think of using the phonetic root. It just looked cool to me when I saw it in writing, the KWES, and I was like, all right, that's it.
Yep.
And we had been trying to come up with a name for like a month.
And
So
then you're like, boom, this is
I was
it.
like, this is the one.
No more discussion.
Yeah.
There's a comment from or a kind of conversation between Swarlow and Code Stencil in the chat talking about just again the idea of the MVP and how there's an example of Remix is something that's in an MVP right now that people are still hyped about. And then Code Stencil responded talking about marketing specifically, saying it's a big issue for him wearing so many hats as a startup, dev, tester, marketer, marketing suffers most. That's really interesting because I think the thing for me, there's multiple things that are super impressive about you and the product. One, like your origin story about how you learned to code and like tackling that so quickly and talking to you in the amount of time that we talked. I know that you know what you're talking about, and that's really impressive. But then also, like the product is not just the code, right? It's the design, it's the marketing, it's the branding, it's all that stuff. And it seems like you've done a lot of that stuff yourself. So maybe any history or balance of like your interest in those areas and how you got to be comfortable doing that stuff. Because I look at like myself building a product and those two things, marketing and design, are like, I need someone else to help me out with this because that's not my strong suit.
Right. Marketing is really handled by my partner Eric. I just
Okay.
bring like a kind of like I'm very psychological with my approach to things and to people and stuff like that. So I don't know why, but I just kind of feel like I have a good grasp on not to sound braggy or anything, but a good
This is
grasp
your
on
chance to
like,
brag.
all right, I'm the best. All right. I just feel like I have a good grasp on like people, like how to get a reaction from people, and maybe that just came over time through like the different copy that I would write for like the landing page and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I studied a lot of branding just in my free time, just because I always loved the idea of branding and the psychology behind it. Just like this, have you ever heard of Focus Lab?
Mm-mm.
They're a branding agency. I forgot where they're based out of, but they're awesome. And they have these awesome case studies that go really in depth to like everything that they do, like the reason why they chose certain colors and stuff like that. So I think just like studying it and learning it really helped me be able to pick a good, figure out how to kind of get the brand to where I wanted it to be. For this version 2, the latest, brand style that we have, I really wanted it to feel like professional, but I wanted it to feel also like a little fun, but really simple. Like I wanted it to make you feel like this was a real simple product to use. That's why it's so minimal. But then when something's too minimal, it could become like a little too serious. So then that's why we also added like the funner illustrations to
Yeah.
it. But I don't know. To me, I really love the fact that I do design and coding, because I think if I just did one or the other, I will get bored of it. So it kind of
That's
gives me
fair.
a
Yeah.
break. it gives me a break from coding to do some design work, and it gives me a break from design work to do
To,
back
yeah.
coding.
Okay.
Because design work's very draining.
I
If
mean,
you're
yeah,
Yeah, if you're trying to really nail it, it could be super draining because there's a lot of details in it. So then
absolutely.
it would be good to kind of then you get back into coding and just do a little bit more monotonous stuff. You know what I mean? But then coding can be draining as well. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Code Stencil is asking the site that you mentioned for the branding stuff or the brand. What was that site again?
It's focuslabllc.com.
Focus Lab LLC. I'm going to grab this and then put it in the chat. What'd you say?
I'm giving them free marketing.
Nice. Yes. Well
But I've been
deserved.
following them. Man, I've been following them for like 6 years. Sometimes I just go to the site, even though I know nothing changed, and I just look at it.
And just take a look. Yeah.
Just look at it.
One of my goals specifically this upcoming year, and I've kind of said this for a while, but I'm actually going to like sit down and take dedicated time to do it, is to get better at design. And I signed up for, I think it's Front Loops, and it's you pay $30 and they send you these 30 challenges, and they give you, I say starter code, but there's not really much code there, and they give you an image and a video of a project, and you build it. And that is like, I have watched a lot of design videos. What I haven't done is taken the time to actually do it and practice it myself. So that's one of my big goals this upcoming year, is to specifically use dedicated time to work on design, and then also to spend more dedicated time learning about marketing as well. And I don't know exactly what that looks like probably a couple of ebooks, or just books in general, and maybe a video course or something, but like actually trying to spend dedicated time with it and incorporate it into the stuff that I do.
Yeah, marketing's a huge topic.
Yep. So you mentioned the iteration, like the 2.0 of Quez, and I know that was a really big deal, both from a code perspective and then a branding perspective and the website perspective. You got a comment in the chat that your site looks good, by the way. So do you want to talk a little bit about like what goes into or what went into the 2.0, why you made those changes, and then what went into it from a coding and a design and maybe marketing perspective?
Sure. I was gonna say one thing about when you were talking about that you wanted to learn about design.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, I was just gonna say that something that helped me out a lot was I would look at the explanations that real experience, like really, really good designers would give on their designs.
Okay.
Like why they would choose a certain font or why they would choose a certain color. Because then when you kind of learn the psychology of it, it really
Mm-hmm.
helps you to kind of think in a similar way, and then you get similar results. You know. So I
Okay.
just wanted to mention that because that was a big help for me. But
Yeah.
anyways, back to what you had said. So your question was, why? Okay, let's start with the first one. You asked why I decided to do the V2.
Yep.
Okay, so the reason for that was once I started finally getting feedback from people, and I
Hey,
started
look at that.
Jamstack, um, I realized that my script was like too huge for like a real lean um, type of stack like Jamstack. Like Jamstack, people want their sites to be as fast as possible. They barely want they really don't want anything like holding them back as far as like performance. And my script at the time was like 300 kilobytes. And maybe it was because in big part it was because it was built on Vue.js rather than just like vanilla.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, the first one was built on Vue.js, and that probably had to do with the fact that I didn't have enough JavaScript experience 5 years
Sure.
ago when
Yep.
I started building it, so I
Yep.
needed that framework. So without it, I probably wouldn't even be here anyways.
Yeah.
But then, yeah. So, but then after I started getting those comments from people, a lot of people kept complaining about it, like, oh, this is taking too long. Especially people that are not from the United States, that are like, in Europe
Yep.
or where it's like going to be a little slower anyways because the servers are over here. So I was like, man,
Where did you host the script, by the way? How did you host that originally?
I think originally they were hosted in New York.
Like in Amazon
Server.
S3 bucket or?
No, I was using DigitalOcean at first.
Okay.
Now I'm using Amazon, but yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm using Amazon, and I don't remember where it is now. Virginia or something. I don't remember.
Okay.
But it's in the United States. So then, people were complaining about how slow it was, and I was getting like, I don't know, I was getting so fed up with it already. I was like, I know that I can't just tweak this. I feel like I have to rebuild it from scratch, And then I have this tendency to like go off the rails, to like, go rogue, and then just work on something. So Eric and I had outlined our roadmap and what we were gonna do, and I just went rogue. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. And he's like, bro, are you sure? Like, like I don't know, that's like a big thing. Like I don't know. And I was like, dude, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. So then I went to Gainesville to visit my brother-in-law, and it's like real, chill up there. Cause for anyone that doesn't know, I live in Miami. So then I went to Gainesville for like I think it was like a week or something like that to take a vacation. But what I really did was I built the V2 script while I was there,
Nice.
and then I just decided that I was going to. And what actually finished like inspiring me to get me to finally do it was when I heard about Dino.
Yeah.
Have
Okay.
you heard about Dino?
Yep.
The creator of Node.js, like was kind of fed up with it and just wanted to redo it from scratch, and then he built Dino. So it was like a similar situation. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So then I just built the V2 of KwesForms in vanilla JavaScript that allowed the script to go from 300 kilobytes to like 20 kilobytes only,
Yeah. Cool.
which was like amazing. It was so much better than I had expected. And everything, since I was getting a chance to build it again, I had more experience
Yep.
with what I was trying to do, so I made way less mistakes and just made a way better script overall. So then once that happened, I think I kind of had some of that anxiety that the guy had mentioned in the chat of wanting to make sure you have a good first impression.
Yeah.
So then I was like, you know what? I did this V2. It's awesome. I want to redo the whole brand. And then Eric wanted to kill me.
And this is where like I loved when you said it, but you were like, and I went rogue.
Yeah, I went super rogue. That I wanted to redo the logo. I wanted to redo the everything
Yeah.
because I wanted to bring out the V2. Like I wanted to bring it out right.
So can you elaborate a little bit more of like why that was so important from you, thinking from like a marketing and branding perspective? Like why was that such a big deal? Was it the idea of like, hey, not only is this an upgrade, it's a new version, but this is kind of like this is the new wave. This is like the new thing that you want to have. Was that kind of like the mentality that you had?
Exactly. It was like I wanted to feel like this was like an overhaul. If you thought the first one was great, this one's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to give that impression, and then I also took the all of the opinions that people gave about the old branding,
Hmm.
where people would say, "Oh, it looks really clean and it feels real simple," and I kind of wanted to lean into that like 110%. You know, since I felt like okay, that's what was working, right? So I just wanted to really lean into it. And then Eric was super pissed because he wanted to like just bring out the V2 already, but I was like, I have to do the branding. And then I took forever coming up with the logo. And then my wife was actually the one because my wife is very like creative as well.
And shout out to the wife. Did the whole camera setup. This
That's
is one of the few times where like a guest comes on and their video looks a lot better than mine. So that's cool.
my wife. Yeah, she's a videographer, so we have like a crazy amount of equipment here. So she has like three cameras, a bunch of lenses. So it helped. It worked in my favor. It came out of my pocket, but then it helped me.
Yeah.
So then I was trying to come up with the logo, and then I just kind of needed some fresh eyes, and I was like, hey, what do you think? And then she kind of came up with like she just drew it like in her phone, similar to what the finished one is now with the K and the F inside. And then I was like, oh, this is nice. And I just kind of like
Mm.
made the F inside a little thicker to make the shapes more interesting with the negative space. And then I loved it.
I don't think I realized.
Oh, you didn't
So
notice?
I didn't notice the F.
Yeah, dude.
All right, everybody go. The link is in the chat. Everybody go to the site, look at the logo, and let me know if you see the K and the F. But then also if you saw it originally before before I mentioned or before you mentioned it.
I tried to give a little like FedEx vibe.
Yeah,
FedEx.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and then I think that the shape itself just looks interesting too. So then I originally wanted to just keep the F and drop the KwesForms, but I was like, my brand's not big enough yet to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
I gotta keep the KwesForms for now. But at one point, I would like to do that.
Okay.
So then I came up with the brand. I loved it. I showed it to Eric, and he loved it. And then after I came up with the logo was when I started coming up with the design. And then it was real like radical from our old one. Like it was a big change. So, we were like a little hesitant, but I was like, bro, let's just do it, man. Let's go all in. I really liked it. And then we finally launched it, and
And
we've
this
gotten a
is
pretty good like reception for it, since.
good. And it's been like 2 months now. I feel like time is a weird thing during COVID, but it's been a couple of months, right?
Since I launched it, yeah, it's been a couple. It's
Maybe
been,
3,
I
maybe
think it's,
4.
I think maybe around 4. I think maybe around
Well, I
4.
feel, yeah, it's hard to believe that it's already December, and we're already a few days into December. Like it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. And then I noticed that I also, something I did, because you also asked about the marketing, right? The new landing page. I made I tried to make sure I defined our, our tone, like our tone and the way that we're speaking.
Okay.
So I took a look at a lot of different types of like landing pages and their tones. Like Apple, for example, has a real cocky tone when they do their marketing, and I like it. You know, it's cool. It's real like braggy and cocky, like, oh, you're gonna love this, you know. So then I was like, you know, I worked with Eric trying to figure out what her tone was gonna be. I didn't do that for the other iterations, and it kind of keeps things consistent too when you define your tone from the beginning. So then I use that to kind of come up with the headlines and try to make them like a little cocky, a little like, you know, kind of like almost flirty to get you to like, you know, to be interested in the product. And I feel like that kind of helped, you know.
Well,
And I feel like
that's
we also did a better job of outlining the benefits
yeah.
and things like that, you know.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned tone because writing copy is like one of the most annoying things for me. Like I would literally outsource people writing copy for me in a minute.
But you
Um,
can't do that.
say what?
You can't do that. If it's like, at least for a landing page, and it's like your product, because I don't like writing
Yeah.
copy either, but for
Yeah.
my product I do, just because, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
What
Someone
happened?
someone found the lights off command. I'm going to treat
Oh.
this like a can we try to turn them back on? I wonder what command that would be.
Right. um so what was I saying? Oh, that I feel like it's important because this is your brand, you know, you really want to get your tone exactly right and say exactly what you want to say. Like if
That's
you
fair.
outsource to somebody else, unless you pay like really, really, really good money, I'm thinking, but I think no one's really gonna feel as passionate about it as you.
I agree. I just it's hard. There's just something that's so stressful about figuring out, and maybe that's what I haven't done is I haven't taken the time to step back first and think about what's most important to communicate and then write. I think I probably, like a lot of people, just try to start writing stuff and then it's hard, and I haven't done the work beforehand to really know here's what I'm trying to communicate, and maybe that's just on me.
Well, I don't know if this helps, but the way that I do it is I kind of outline, like I lay out like the sections, right? Like this section, I want to talk about how KwesForms works. This section, I want to talk about this feature. This
Hmm.
section, I want it to be a testimonial, and then I get into the sections. And what I do is I just start writing. Like I don't like to plan out too much. I kind of figure out like, okay, what's the point of this section? What am I trying to say? Okay, that they're going to save a lot of time because of what we're doing. So how can I say that in a real flirtatious way?
I
and
like
then I
the I like the flirtatious way.
and then I try to figure out the wording to get there. You know, you gotta be flirty, man.
You gotta be flirt. I guess I mean that's probably the same confidence that you had in high school when you were
Yeah,
trying to get
except
your
I had
wife
like
to
braces
pay
and I was
attention to you.
100 pounds, so I don't know how that worked.
What were we talking? Oh, so like just I guess the state that you're in now. Like, how are you doing? What does like are you getting good traffic? Are you getting people to convert? Are people trying it out on the free plan? Like, how is that stuff going?
Yeah, it's going good. You know, a big thing that helped us in regards to like monetizing, we used to have we had a free plan, a $5 plan, a 29, and a 79, and a 169 for like
Hmm.
agencies.
All per month.
Yeah, and then we were like, you know what? Let's simplify the pricing plan, right? So we dropped the five and we dropped the 169. So now it's just free 29.79. And then it seems kind of like it seems kind of weird, maybe like counterintuitive, like, oh, you're dropping the five, like you're hiring up the barrier or whatever. But it just kind of got people to have less decision fatigue
Hmm.
when you like, you know, simplify the pricing plans. So it's just like, okay, free, I like it, I want the premium features, I go to 29. You know what I mean? So ever since we did that, and I'm sure with the new branding and the new design and everything, and the new V2, our 29 started, you know,
Nice.
going up like
Yeah.
crazy. And
And
then the traffic started going up a lot too. We started getting into like targeted ads and stuff like that, which brings me back to what I said about if you don't have marketing, it doesn't matter how good your product is.
so who's setting up those targeting ads?
That's Eric.
That is Eric. Okay. Does he have a marketing background?
Yeah. Well, the agency that he had that I worked for, it was an internet marketing agency.
Okay.
That's pretty much what he did for like the last, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. So that can't be your only thing
Yeah.
because the second that you turn off your ads,
Then you have nothing.
it's over.
Yeah.
So you need to be doing that while also building some organic long-term stuff. But you already have like an audience and you're already kind of doing that. So doing the targeted ads will help you a lot.
Yeah. I hope so. We'll see. We'll talk more about that after the stream. Is there any technical aspects of all of this that were maybe the most difficult?
Technical in regards to like what do you mean like getting to this stage?
Anything like any programming challenge that you solved, hosting, server stuff,
Oh
any of that
yeah.
sort of stuff?
Well, we moved to AWS because we're in the process of getting like becoming HIPAA compliant and offering that on
What
like the
goes
gold.
into that?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot goes into that because it's a lot of legal stuff.
Yeah.
And you need to consult with like um, legal people that specialize in HIPAA compliance, and then there's a lot of paperwork you got to do, and then there are like certain checkups that have to be done to make sure everything is HIPAA compliant. It's a lot of work, man. And basically, it makes sure that all the data is hosted in the U.S., that no one can see the data, so on and so forth. So that it's used a lot by um, like the medical industries because they need all that HIPAA compliance stuff. But it's a lot of work, man. Super complicated.
Yeah, and that's one of the things where you open up this door of having a product, and there's so many things now that you have to learn that is just not exactly what the product is. Like that has nothing to do necessarily with the core product, but now to facilitate opening up that door to other people, there's all this other stuff that you have to learn about, you have to be responsible for. And that's one of the tough things. Like I think it just scales up so quickly when you want to like grow a product and think about things that you hadn't thought about before.
It's funny because we were talking about this earlier. Now that you bring that up, and then how someone in the chat had said that you have to wear all these multiple hats and stuff like that. Um, I was feeding lately because I felt like I wasn't being very balanced, like with my time and my work time, things like that. And I feel like I've been like that for like 5 years. And the thing is, you kind of have to do that in the beginning
Yeah.
because it's super tough. Once you finally get the ball rolling and you finally have, you really nailed your product, you nailed your brand, and you're kind of doing the marketing, it becomes easier. But in the beginning, when you're trying to get all of that off the ground, especially if you're not going with the MVP route and you're doing it like me, it's super overwhelming. It helps that I'm young and everything, so then I had the energy, but then it just really started to hit me. And then I went to like play basketball with my wife the other day, and then I felt like, man, this is like the first time I've done something fun in forever. Like I'm not enjoying my life. I had to be more balanced. So then that helped me realize how important it was to kind of like have your work time. And when you're trying to start a company, your work time's going to be more than, especially if you also have a day job and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But you need to set aside time to be able to just hang out, to
Yep.
just do nothing, to be with your family, to watch TV. I don't know. So I felt like after doing that, it's been real helpful too, and it kind of makes you even more productive, even when you're not always just drained, like
Yeah.
burned out. I felt like I was constantly drowning. Like I was just constantly trying to get my head above water. So that's something good to keep in mind when you're trying to do this. You gotta try to be balanced, because if not, then you could lose your motivation and it just won't be fun for you
Yep.
anymore.
Yeah, that's a topic we've talked a lot about on this channel, and we've had specific guests on where that was a big like a majority of what we talked about, and it's definitely true regardless of what stage you're in. But I can certainly understand as the owner of a thing, of the person who's trying to make this thing succeed, also working a full-time job or part-time or whatever. I can very easily see how you kind of get obsessed with that to the point where you start to neglect a little bit like other things going on. Do you feel like you're in a like say what?
If you're very obsessive by nature, it's
Yeah.
even worse.
Do you feel like you're in a spot now with Quez where you feel more comfortable? Like you feel like it's kind of at like here's the thing I can kind of ride with that for a while and then like make
Yeah,
updates and things still.
I do. I feel like now that we have the product like really nailed, like obviously you can always improve on it, and we're still in the middle of HIPAA, which is a lot of work and everything. But
Yeah.
we can now kind of focus on like more of our attention on marketing, and kind of like not be trying to put out huge features right now, at least. Like trying to like get the marketing going, and I feel like we have the product where we want it to be, the identity where we want it to be, and it feels nice.
Yeah. That's cool, especially going into the holidays too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we could take it a little easier in December and then get back into it in January, for the
Yeah.
new year.
We Auth0 gave everyone at the company a week off, like the entire week off last week
Wow.
for Thanksgiving, and that was a really special thing because I think they had noticed some feedback of people feeling a little burnt out, and it sometimes like people don't naturally take care of themselves in terms of taking vacation. Like we have unlimited vacation, but it's up to as individuals, right, to like make sure that they're taking that time for themselves. And I think this was their way of saying like you will take this time, you will take a week off, you will get away, you will not look at your computer, you'll spend time with your family. I sat around, I watched a lot of Christmas movies, my wife and I played a lot of golf, like we did all these things, and that was really special to look at like a company that has the awareness and the culture to say like, hey, everybody go take some time for yourselves, come back, be more rejuvenated, be more excited when you get back, and then we'll work then.
You know what I noticed? There's a huge difference between taking a week off but feeling like you're supposed to be doing
Yeah.
something. Like it's hard to explain, but kind of like, okay, I'm supposed to do this today, right? But then I'm just like so tired and I don't do it. There's a big difference between that and purposefully
Right.
taking the day off and being like, this day I'm gonna take it off.
Yep.
I'm not gonna work on it. I'm not gonna think about it. Because what happens with the first one, your mind is not really taking the day off because you're feeling stressed and guilty
Yep.
about not doing what you gotta do, even though you didn't do anything. But you're feeling guilty. Whereas on the other one, you're actually taking the time off, and then it kind of re-energizes you to actually have the energy to really do it. So I kind of put that in practice too, because recently my grandmother passed away, and
Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
yeah, and I was really close to her,
Yeah.
but then I felt like I have to purposefully take time off to grieve
Mm-hmm.
rather than kind of like just be grieving but still like be doing, so I took like a whole week off. I didn't do any work, and then it really helped me kind of get through it, since it was done purposefully.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I
I,
mean?
I think you
Sometimes if you
kind
don't give
of,
yourself, uh-huh.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say sometimes if you don't give yourself the time to really
Yeah.
process things, to grieve or to take a break, you don't really do it. Even though your actions may be the same, maybe I took the week off from, or maybe I didn't, maybe I worked or whatever, but I didn't really have the time to really sit back and process it. It makes a huge difference.
Oh, I think there's an aspect of that where you kind of make peace with yourself by being intentional. Now you know I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, and that's fine because that's what this time is intended for, to not do that stuff. And
Yeah, it
having
really.
having that awareness, having that conversation with yourself beforehand, I think does make a big difference. And my wife, I think like I would say she struggles with it. I don't think she thinks so, but like has a couple days off and she's like anxious to get back to work. And I'm like I took a week off and I was like, man, I could easily take another week off. Like I could totally live this out for a while. But at the same time, like when I come back, I know I'm doing stuff that I enjoy, which is a big factor in it. But I was pretty intentional of like I'm gonna do everything that I wouldn't have done on a regular week. I played golf like almost every day. I was staying up later and watching movies. Like that's just kind of fun for me.
Yeah, that's just fun right there.
I felt like I was in like college again. I didn't have any schedule, didn't have any responsibilities, just kind of hanging out.
Yeah, and I find that after that intentional time off, I feel like super hyped
Yeah.
to just kill it,
Yep.
to get
That's
into it.
yeah. I came back this week, maybe a little slow, like getting into it, but pretty quickly was like, yeah, I'm ready to do some fun stuff.
Yeah, that totally helps.
We are, what are we at? We're at an hour I'm curious if anybody in the chat has any additional questions, and we can probably get close to wrapping up. I wonder, just like as we kind of head out, is there any what's kind of next for you? Is it like is it a big V3? Is it just continuing to kind of grow what you have? Is it focusing more on getting new people to try out the platform? What are your kind of immediate goals?
What's next for us, and I don't know if I should say this or not, but whatever. I don't think it should be a problem. Next for us, we kind of are looking to integrate with platforms that we feel we fit perfectly with, like something like Versal,
Okay.
uh, or
Yeah.
similar Jamstack platforms.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of our users actually use Verso or Netlify, but then they choose to use our form service instead. So then I kind of feel like, maybe we can have a good partnership or something like that. So we're looking kind of like for bigger contracts like that, platforms and enterprise type plans. So that's kind of like the next step right now.
That's cool. Yeah, that's exciting. And that is one of those things that opens up, like, again, that door gets wider and wider, especially when you if you get to work out a relationship with a bigger company that has a bigger audience.
Right. So then, yeah. And I feel like it's just a natural evolution,
Yeah.
as Jamstack continues to grow, and then people are always going to need hosting and everything like that.
Yep. Maybe last question from Code Stencil in here. From a technical perspective, what platform? Actually, we got another question coming too. What kind of platform did you use for multi-tenancy since your product is a SaaS? I think you said you're in AWS is where you're hosting all of your stuff. Was there any tricky things that came with setting any of that stuff up?
I actually didn't set it up
Okay.
for that because AWS, man, that could be real complicated.
Yeah.
I've never really been like a super heavy like server guy, so I actually hired somebody
Oh, cool.
to set that up for us.
Cool. Was that somebody?
I was able to hire somebody.
Yeah. Was that somebody local in Miami?
No, they were in New York.
Okay.
They were in New York, but we had established a good relationship, so I trusted them.
Yep.
Because when you're gonna hire someone to do something like that, they're gonna look at your code base and everything. I wouldn't want just, oh, you good?
I almost dropped my coffee. Yeah. Either
I
that or
wouldn't,
I had a seizure.
yeah. You just,
Yeah.
I didn't want just anybody looking into our code base and stuff like that, especially since we're like not open source or anything.
Right.
No, we hired somebody to do it, and that was a huge transition. There was a few problems that came up from it, like the the queue jobs had a few little hiccups and stuff like that, but mostly it was good, and now we're like it's stable. And we also needed to make that move for the HIPAA compliance as well.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I wish I could be more helpful with that question, but
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the perspective too of like you don't have to do everything yourself, and sometimes it's worth it to get someone else to do something for you to make sure it's done right and faster, right? Than you could have done it yourself, and that
and at
especially
that point,
once you have the money to spend on it, works
yeah,
out
and
really
at that
well.
point we already had a lot of users, so I mean, if I would have messed something up,
Yeah. Right.
would have been a no way,
Yeah.
I didn't even think about doing that. That's something that because I had set up the whole server stuff before by myself, where I had like the load balancer and then I had the multiple servers it would go to. That was a DigitalOcean, and I had used Laravel Forge for it. It makes everything like a lot easier. But for AWS, I wasn't really gonna have the luxury of using such a helpful wrapper like that, so I had to really make sure I hired somebody that knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Makes sense. Two more questions. Swallow is asking, yeah, why you chose agencies as your target group. And I think part of that is that's just kind of like the use case was for kind of the agency that you worked at first and foremost. But any other details about why agencies as a target group?
Yeah, agencies because they have clients, and every website that they do is gonna 99% of the time need a
Yep.
form, right? So then you get an agency, well then they're able to use it on multiple clients, like 100 clients or something like that. So
True.
then it's just easier to kind of monetize when you're going for somebody who's bringing you the money instead, rather than
Yeah.
me kind of going after those 100 clients myself. So
Yeah.
it was just a lot easier to go about it that way.
That's cool. That's a
And
really good point.
another thing, there's a difference between a developer doing it for themselves and an agency, because a developer doing it for themselves, doing a project for themselves, may not need, like they may not be with their back against the wall in regards to time. So they could go and maybe build something
Bit.
themselves.
Yep.
They spend, But an agency can't do that because they're on the clock, So then they have to try to like, push these sites out, these projects out as quick as possible. So then it's perfect for them because it facilitates that whole creating a form, sending an email with the validation and spam protection and everything. It condenses what would be, days of work into just like a few minutes for them. So
Yeah.
it's just like a brainer.
I love the idea of like scaling out through agencies.